Hey, what's going on everybody? I'm Pocket and welcome back. In this video series, we are taking our Holy Paladin and trying to go for the 0.01% title for Season 4 of Dragonflight. And moving into Week 3, we have the Dark Heart content update that dropped, and unfortunately there is no Holy Paladin buffs. And I'm not gonna lie to you guys, this was a pretty rough week. We had a ton of bricked keys. So before we get into it, if you guys are enjoying this content and this series, please give it a like, subscribe to the channel. And thank you all so much for those that have liked and subscribed and left all of your encouraging comments. We completely blew by our benchmark of 300 subscribers, and that's massive for a tiny little content creator like myself. So once again, thank you guys so much. Alright, now let's continue our journey on the road to title. Alright, so starting out this week, we have a 517 item level with a 2722 Mythic Plus rating score. And we are running slightly different talents than last week, but for the most part, they are pretty much the same. But I do have to ask, if you are playing Holy Paladin, do you prefer double Beacon or Beacon of Virtue? Because I've been running Beacon of Virtue right now, and I find it a lot easier to heal on than double Beacon. Alright, so first things first, we are going to head over here and open up our vault. And we did get quite a few options, but we are going to go with the Mythic Track shoulder pads that have leech on them. So that's going to be a pretty decent upgrade for us. Unfortunately, we are still rocking a 486 helmet, and we really need to replace that because that's our lowest item level thing right now. And with the new content update, you know, we had to go check it out, do the quest line and whatnot. So what do you guys think? You hyped for the War Within yet? So we are starting out with Raid this week, and to be honest with you, this is day 2. We ended up canceling our Raid because looking for group was completely broken. And the only way to fix it was by turning off your mature language filter. I don't know. And on top of that, I was also having some internet issues, so we did end up running a few keys as well, but I don't think we timed any of them. I think most of them were bricked. I was lagging a lot of the times, or my internet just completely shut off, so you know how it is. But going into Raid here, the only thing I'm really looking for is to replace my head slot. That's all I need. Pretty much everything else is just going to be upgrades and Mythic Track gear of the same stuff that I already have. And I'm not going to lie guys, I have been raid leading this raid quite a bit in the past, in the last season, and I've never actually done seeds. I know how to do seeds, but I don't actually do them. And I now understand why nobody wants to do seeds. This is by far one of the most annoying mechanics I've ever had to deal with, having to dodge and drop your seed and run to the side and hoping that a tornado doesn't hit it, and then you gotta pick it back up, and I was just running all over the map. I was barely healing the entire time, and it was so stressful. And I miscalculated my seed drop, so I ended up dropping it just a little bit too early, hitting it with a flame line and wiping half the group. But luckily it did not kill everyone, and we did end up taking down the boss. And I was also called out this week by my team for highlighting all of their mess ups, but I never put my mess ups in my videos. You know, why would I? I edit them. But there you go, there's the first mess up this week. We wiped half the raid group. And we did not win one of the Awakened Tempo Stones that I could have spent to get a new head slot, so we're still going to be rocking last tier's headpiece. And with the final Awakened raid being completed, we had to head over, get on our new mounts, and take a picture as a team. And the first dungeon that we are going to hop into after raid is going to be this plus 11 Halls of Infusion. And we plugged into this key, and we were already having a really rough time. We have 16 deaths, and it wasn't looking too good. And I know I've talked about this boss in the past, but especially on a tyrannical week, this guy is really tough with all of the pulsating damage. Now, Holy Paladin doesn't really have that big of an issue healing large bursts of damage. It's the long duration, rotting kind of damage that's where we struggle a little bit more. So if this boss went perfectly, I do think we probably still could have timed the key with the time that was left. However, I stood too close to the ice, I got hit by it, I died, and we ended up wiping the group. So once again, there's another mistake for you. And the group was pretty good sports about everything. We were going to just finish the dungeon even though we weren't going to time it. However, one of the mechanics that I learned, which, you know, still learning mechanics, is the tank gets knocked back, and if you're standing too close and the tank doesn't get there in time, he will melee you. I did not know that until that exact thing happened, and I died. So, whose fault is that? Mine or the tank's? And then once that wipe happened, we thought we were just going to finish it up, but it looks like the mage had other plans, and he ended up leaving the group, which I can't necessarily blame him, and we decided to call it there. But with that pug key out of the way, we got Raquel and Melee's back to run it back on a +11 no-coup defensive. And to be honest with you, this key started off really well. We had a few hiccups here and there, but whenever you're running with a group of people in Discord, things obviously go a lot smoother than just trying to straight up pug everything. So we were making really good time, and we got to the trash pulls here, and I don't know why tanks do this, but we're making amazing time, and then they just decide to pull a stupid amount of mobs. Like, I'm all for pulling big when we have CDs or if we have lust up, stuff like that, but if you can't pull a bunch of mobs and survive by yourself as a tank, you shouldn't be pulling that much, and we would have been just fine clearing the packs that we had without pulling the extra packs. But he ended up pulling more, and we wiped here, and this is kind of when things started going downhill for this key. We do manage to recover just fine from our wipes from before. We make it to the last boss. We have plenty of time. We're sitting with 40% health on the boss, with 7 minutes left to go. And then the boss starts casting Crackling Upheaval, and for some reason, the other Paladin decides to run away at the same angle as me. And honestly, I don't know why he was running away. He had plenty of space. And I was trying not to stack on him as well as take the upheaval, but I ended up doing both, taking the upheaval and the lightning, and ended up dying. And then obviously he battle resed me, and I immediately took it without looking, and I killed myself because there's a swirly where he resed me. And there you have it. There is plenty of proof that I am not as good as a player as I make it look like by editing out all of my failures. And keep that as a reminder, if you do get a battle res, go ahead and just take a look around and make sure that it is safe to take it before you immediately hit accept. I know I've done it multiple times, and I'm sure you have done it multiple times as well. And if you were paying attention to the timer when we died, one might think, oh, well, you still have 5 more minutes to kill the boss. You have plenty of time. And I completely agree with you. Things were looking a lot better, but we got to this point and the tank took a major hit while I was trying to cast Hand of Divinity and then trying to spell him with my GDC on cooldown. He ended up going down. Once the tank dies, you know, it's pretty much GG's. And believe it or not, everyone did end up staying, and we did kill the boss. And we got nothing out of it. However, we did learn some valuable lessons. Not to worry though, it wasn't a complete disaster of a day. We ran a +10 Bracken hide and managed to time it even with 15 deaths still on the clock, which gave us 15 points, bringing us up to a 2755 Mythic Plus score. And will that good fortune follow us into the next dungeons afterwards? No, of course it won't. So this dungeon was actually pretty interesting because we did make some decent time. It's a +11 ruby life pools. We get to the last boss with plenty of time on the clock to kill him. I do get 1 death, so we do use a battle res during the fight. When I take the battle res, you know, learning from my mistakes in the past, not accepting it until after I knew it was safe, Melee's goes down at the same time, not a problem. There's still 4 of us alive, still plenty of time. It's not going to be that difficult. We just have to make sure that we are playing it correctly with the 4 of us. And guess what? The dragon dies. And if you get to this boss and you kill the dragon, it's pretty much GG. You've timed the key. You've won. However, our tank decided to stand in the fire and he died. And it really was just really bad timing because he took the storm slash right after the dot expired on him. So there really wasn't much I could have done or what he could have done other than initially just not standing in the fire. So there you have it. We ended up failing on a +11 Ruby life pools with just Stormvane alive. And that was it. They left the group and we did not get to finish the dungeon. And that's where we decided to end day 1. I think at this point we were all pretty defeated and we were done with keys for the day. And I don't know about you guys, but I always feel like the day on reset, so usually a Tuesday, that's when the keys are the hardest. And I don't know if it's because everyone's still getting used to the new affixes or the fortified, tyrannical, I don't know what it is, but I always feel like that's where the biggest problems happen is during that first day. So hopefully it gets a little bit better through this week. Now with the start of day 2, we pug into a +10 Halls of Infusion and everything went a lot smoother. We got through all the bosses just fine, only 5 deaths, and we managed to time this key. Okay, so we had 6 deaths, but that one doesn't really count. The boss was already gonna die. We didn't need a healer at that point, but we did time the key, getting us an extra 15 points, bringing us up to 2775. And then we end up pugging into a +10 Neltharis, and we end up wiping on the chain boss, and we do not end up timing the key. Everybody ends up bleeding. And now we're jumping into a +10 Azure Vault, and this one is going very smooth. And if you're playing Holy Paladin, guys, do I recommend bringing an Augmentation Evoker with you? To be honest with you guys, I don't really play Augmentation Evoker. I don't really know what they do other than, you know, they buff their support class. They make DPS do more damage, but that's about it. Other than that, I don't know what other really buffs they give out, but it's so much easier to heal dungeons with an Augmentation Evoker in them, and every key that I have an Aug in, it just seems like it goes so smooth, and I think I want to continue taking Augs with me in the future. However, it can be difficult to pug with an Augmentation Evoker just because if you do happen to have a DPS who isn't doing that much damage, well, now you really have 2 people that aren't really doing much damage because they're not benefiting from the Augmentation Evoker, and obviously the Augmentation Evoker isn't doing that much damage anyways. So pugging with an Aug can sometimes be hit or miss. Also, people told me that the on use for the Black Dragon Scale trinket is useless. My friends, I will assure you that it is not useless. I will never die from fall damage again. And there it is, we timed the key, bringing us up to a 2784 Mythic Plus score. Now with those pugged keys out of the way, we finally got the dream team back together, and we're now going to push our own keys. And joining us as our tank is Fayrina, and they were someone that watched the last video and asked to tank some of my keys, so they ended up joining us as well. And having a skilled, knowledgeable tank in your keys makes the world of a difference. This Paladin is a pug, though. I have no idea who that is. But I knew they were going to be a somewhat decent player because they have some horrendous transmog. And everyone knows, the worse the transmog is, the better the player they are. So now I did want to take a minute and talk about the state of Holy Paladin because we've been playing this for just over 3 weeks now, and I kind of want to talk about the strengths and weaknesses. And as we all know, Holy Paladin is C tier. They are at the bottom of the barrel right now. They're not performing super great. You know, you can still have groups of well-coordinated people and they can still perform, but it's a lot more difficult. So all this is gonna be opinionated, but this is the way I see it. So feel free to disagree or agree with me. One of the issues that I feel is difficult about Paladin is the button bloat. We have so many different buttons to push, and I do enjoy having a more cooldown rotation based healer. That's why I enjoy playing the Holy Paladin. However, we have so many buttons, and I'm not even including the buttons you have to push to do damage. I'm talking just about healing at this point. And then when they kind of added into making a Paladin a caster, I don't really enjoy. I always enjoyed Paladin because I was up in the front, I was doing melee DPS, I was insta-casting everything, and I didn't have to cast. Now I understand there's some healers that do cast and people like that, that's fine, but the Holy Paladin didn't have to cast, that's why I enjoyed playing it. But now some of my abilities are based around casting Holy Light and Flash of Light, and it's just not my favorite thing. If I wanted to play a caster healer, I would play a caster healer. Now, if you want to make a different side of the tree, focus more on casting, I'm okay with that. But I want my side of the tree to be the playstyle that I want to play that doesn't have to involve casting. All right, so second thing is just the overall output of healing. So Paladin has always been a burst healer. Anytime massive damage comes out, it's very easy to just pop a heal on someone and healing 50% or more of their health. At this point in season 4 though, everybody has so much health that when I heal somebody, it doesn't actually feel like I'm healing them. It's doing so little, the scaling is just not there. If I crit with a flash of light doing 200k on a tank who has 1.7 million health on a lower scale, I'm doing none of their health pool at all. I am completely useless when it comes to healing the tanks because I can't output the healing that they need. And that's only in those sticky situations. Most of the time you don't need to heal your tank, they're just fine. But even myself as the healer, I'm sitting around 1.2, 1.3 million health. So a 40k heal from Holy Shock doesn't feel like I'm doing anything. That's just like an average tick from regrowth from a druid or something like that. And you're telling me that's one of my base abilities of direct heal? It's just not enough healing. They need to buff the Holy Paladin overall healing to scale with the amount of health that people have in season 4. Now, I honestly don't think they're going to buff really anything at this point just because it is the end of the expansion and they're probably dealing more with getting the expansion out rather than trying to deal with tuning in the final season. So I don't expect it. If they do buff Paladin, I will be super happy, but I don't really see it happening. But those are my biggest gripes about HPAL right now. And even if they don't do an entire rework on the class for season 4, even just a flat rate percentage buff for the overall healing would be incredible. All I want is when I cast a heal on somebody, I want to see their health pool move. That's it. That's all I ask for. And granted, I do have a lot of crit. I'm sitting around 35% crit right now, so I do crit quite a bit. But those ones that don't crit, it's like, it's not doing anything. So what do you guys think? Do you agree? Do you disagree? And like, what changes would you want to see if they were to make a change in season 4? Because, you know, there's plenty of changes coming in the next expansion. And at this point too, guys, I'm just like your average player. I don't claim to be the best Holy Paladin ever, not even close. So am I the problem? Am I going to be the reason why our team can't get to title? I'm sure there might be 3, maybe 4 Holy Paladins that get the title, but I don't know if one of them's going to be me. Now, don't get me wrong, guys. I'm not throwing in the towel. We're not quitting. We're going to keep going. But it is going to take a lot of work and some augmentation of ogres. And to be straight with you guys as well, I don't think this would be possible if I was just pugging. Having 1 or 2 other players to pug with me makes the world of a difference. Now, if you can actually get a full team of 5, I'm sure it's going to be a lot easier, but pugging into a full random key, if you can even get invited to that key, is definitely a little bit more difficult than running with your team. So if you can find some people to play with, trust me, do it. It's way easier to play with someone who's in a non-meta class who you know is good than playing with someone who's in a meta class but isn't very good. At least that's just what I tell Raquel and Melee so they don't leave me. So far I think it's working. They haven't left yet. And we did end up timing the +12 Neltharis, which at this point is the highest key that we have timed so far this season. We only had 5 deaths with almost 4 minutes left to spare, so it went really well. And that's going to bring us up to 28-23. So we did run quite a few more other keys. However, I'm not going to cover every single key because I would be here for hours telling you guys about it. But the last thing I did want to highlight is the last key that we did run. It's going to be this +13 Halls of Infusion. It is a Tyrannical week, and we are on the second to last boss in here, which is, I think, the hardest boss to heal, especially on a Tyrannical week. So before we pulled the boss, I did tell the tank that I needed 100% mana to get through this fight, which I'm going to be using all of it. And wasting those extra 15 to 20 seconds to get full mana is a lot better than running out of mana and causing the group to wipe. And then I also emphasized to everyone in the group to pop their defensives as much as they possibly could. any amount of damage mitigation on this is very much appreciated. And in these stressful and intense moments is one of the biggest reasons why I really enjoy playing the Holy Paladin, because of the cooldown rotation that you have to do. If you pop all your cooldowns at once, you're not going to make it through the fight. You have to rotate through them and make sure that you have something available at all times so you can get those heals out. Now take, for example, Resto Druid, you know, you're just using Tree of Life and then making sure you keep Rejuve, Efflorescence, and your life blooms up. And that's really all you have to do, with an occasional spot regrowth here and there. Completely different healing style. And just so you guys know, I always compare the Resto Druid to myself right now, because Resto Druid is my second main. I usually main H-Pal and Resto Druid, so I'm very familiar with the playstyle. As compared with some of the other classes, I'm not super familiar, so that's why I always use the Resto as example. But anyways, you take a look down at the healing meters, we are pushing upwards of 400k HPS just to get through this fight right now, on top of all the other healing that my group is doing to keep themselves alive. And I mentioned this earlier, but I just can't see myself doing this fight without Beacon of Virtue. Having double Beacon here, I just feel like is very difficult to get the group topped off, because usually what happens is I'll heal, I'll get everyone to full health, and then they'll slowly decay until I get a massive cooldown and Virtue back up, and then I top them back up to full health, and then they slowly decay again. And I think the sustained healing for Holy Paladin just isn't there to use double Beacon. However, I have seen people use double Beacon on this fight in a higher level key and manage to do it just fine, but I guess my skill level is not there because I just don't see myself doing it. Now, I kind of do want to give it a try after watching some other players, but man, does it look difficult. And there it is, we do end up killing the boss. I ended up at an average of 392,000 HPS at the end of that fight, and it was tough, I'm not gonna lie, it was really hard. I couldn't have done it without other people pushing their defensives. And if you can get through that boss, you can get through the last boss, so we do end up timing the key, 7 deaths, 2 minutes and 30 seconds to spare, giving us 29 points for that, bringing us up to an ending score for the week of 2877. And honestly, I did want to get past 2900 this week, but we're not going to be able to make it. So I'm not going to lie, guys, it was a tough week. I didn't get as many points as I wanted to. We bricked so many keys. I didn't even show half of the keys that we ran. Most of them were bricked. And when I did time a key, we only got like 3 or 4 points from something else. So, but ending the week, timing this plus 13 Halls of Infusion on a Tyrannical really was a great way to end this week, which I thought, again, was very difficult. All right, guys, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, tricks, tips, advice, or anything, leave a comment below. I will respond to all of you guys. And once again, thank you all so much for watching. If you've made it this far, might as well at this point give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and we will be back with week 4, which I am hoping is going to go a lot smoother than this week. All right, thanks again, and we will see you guys in the next one.